President of our institute, Mr. B.B. Nayak ji, Vice President Srinivas Prasad ji, Central Council members, regional council members, past presidents, distinguished panelists sitting on the dais, and my fellow CMA Parivar. Good afternoon to all of you. I would like to thank the institute first for picking up a topic which is very relevant in today's day. TCM and PCM is the difference between a company which can survive for eternity or the company can go burst. And I will give some stats here. So thanks to the institute first for picking up this topic, TCM and PCM, which is very relevant in today's world. And I will substantiate with some examples. If you look at 58% of S&P 500 companies that existed in early 2000, no longer exist today. And either they have been acquired, they have been merged, or they have been bankrupt. The lifespan of the S&P 500 company, which used to be about 60 years, now has reduced to less than 20 years. And there is a projection that by 2035, 75% of the S&P 500 companies that existed in early 2020 will no longer be part of S&P 500. If you look at our environment where we are operating today, you all can see the impact of high inflation, which was a resultant of COVID, supply chain disruptions, the geopolitical conflicts started by Russia, Ukraine, and then expanded to other regions as well. The interest cost is at a decade high rate. The SOFR has gone up significantly. Earlier, the cost of financing in dollar was almost negligible, but now the cost of financing has significantly gone up. This puts a lot of pressure on the organization to be agile, to be sustainable, and to be competitive in the market. And hence, looking at the TCM and PCM is the need of an hour, and who can be better than the CMAs to look at it holistically, not just the product cost, but the cost of the services, the tax cost, the finance cost, and to make the business cost competitive and make your organizations competitive. So in this era, we all learned how to operate. We all learned how to operate under a VUCA-ism. So VUCA was introduced around 1980s. We all felt comfortable and we all learned how to operate. But now in the last 5 years, the VUCA has turned into BANI, which is brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. So we have to also adopt to the new methodology about managing these costs and making the organizations agile and successful. To play this role, the CMAs has a big responsibility. They have to become a strategic business partner. And business partner is a word which is very, again, I will say, vague. If we ask 10 of you, each of you will have a very different understanding of business partnership. And what does business partnership mean to each of us and to the organization? So what I have tried is just tried to share my perspective on what is business partnering and how CMAs can be a business partner, a strategic business partner, and can use TCM and PCM as a framework to achieve strategic business partnership. So if the business partnership can be played across the 4 roles by the CMAs. The first role is, we all understand, which is the bread and butter for all of us, which is the controllership role. Controllership role is nothing but keeping our organization safe from all the controllable losses, from all the reputational losses. And as part of the controllership, it means building efficiency, standardization, automation, scalable organization, controls, and compliances. So that's the first role which the CMA can play to keep the organization safe from all the external factors. The second role as part of the business partnership is about performance management role. So each of the CMA can be a performance manager by keeping the organization on track against all the plans. And the plans can be the cost management plan, the annual operating plan, the strategic plan, the overheads plan, keeping all your organic capex on track against the initial investment thesis. So there are various roles that we can play to keep the organization on track against all our plans. The third role as part of the business partnership is about co-strategist or co-pilot, where we work jointly with the business team to drive the growth of the organization, and it means improving the margins, the market share, looking at corporate restructuring, looking at other initiatives, digital transformations to grow the business. And if you look at the first three roles, the controllership role, the performance manager role, and the co-strategist role, it's very difficult to quantify the impact on the bottom line. And each of us, being an accountant, we would also like to see the impact on the bottom line. And hence, there is a fourth role that the CMAs can play is about chief value officer role or the value manager role, where we can look at certain initiatives and impact the bottom line for the company, whether it is effective interest rate management or effective tax rate management, the choice of financing for a company, whether it should be local currency funded in the Indian context, whether it should be INR funded, it should be USD funded or Euro funded. We can look at various such initiatives and we can quantify the impact on the bottom line. So these are the four roles that the CMA plays today or can play as part of the business partnering. So this is the framework. Now we would like to see that how TCM and PCM can fit well within this business partnering framework. Do I change the slides? Yeah. So as we discussed that as a controllership, we have to keep the organization efficient, have a standardized processes, automate the processes, build the organization which is scalable without incurring additional cost. So if you look at the PCM framework, there are various activities that we can look at it. I've just shared a couple of here, which can be looked at, and I'm sure it is being looked at by each of you in your respective organization. So what we have practiced, I have practiced in the last couple of years is first to start to look at the target operating model of the organization, that how do we operate as an organization. Today, for an organization, whether it's a domestic company or international company, there are different structures. There are country teams, there are regional teams, there are business unit teams, there are central finance team, corporate finance team, and then there is a GBS structure. How do we ensure that we structure the organization, we structure our respective functions so that we build not just the efficiency and standardization, but also the scale and the center of excellence, which can also have a huge impact on the cost of the different functions and the cost of the organization. So this is one area we can look at it. The second way to look at our cost of the function and the organization is about doing a spans and layers analysis. We can look at the spans of all the supervisory structure that is there in the company. And I feel that a span of 6 to 8 is very competitive. And if there is a more cost pressure, probably it can go up to 10. By looking at it in a very structured manner, we can reduce the cost of the functions, the organization, and hence it can improve the agility of the organizations. The third we can look at it is about how do we offshore certain activities to global business services, and we can build GCCs. GCCs and or the GBS is not just about offshoring the activity, but it creates the cost advantage. It creates the continuity of those processes. It builds the standardization of the processes, and it is scalable. So this is also one of the tools that can help us to reduce our cost. Second pillar, which is the performance manager, if you look at it, again, as a performance manager, there are various activities that each of the CMA can play, but I've just listed down a couple of them for our discussion. We can first look at the organic capex. I think the other fellow panelists also talked about the project cost. Project cost has a large impact, big cost. So how do we look at project cost? And each component of the cost, breaking it down into WBS or work breakdown structure, looking at the different milestones, looking at the contract evaluation process, ensuring that we are keeping the cost on check, looking at how the project has to be financed. There are various aspects of this project cost which can be looked at it, and eventually it can be digitized. How do we use the digital tools to monitor the project cost across the cycle of the project? And similar to the organic capex, which is the project, we can also look at the mergers and acquisitions. Suppose any mergers and acquisition that we do, we look at how do we also create synergies post the acquisitions. So the post-merger integration becomes very, very important part. And again, if once we are able to digitize the entire post-merger integration exercise, we will be able to track the synergies. And CMAs have a very, very important role to play, that how we can leverage and we can ensure that all the synergy that has been baked in to the initial investment thesis are being actually been actualized. Then yeah. Similarly, now we have in the on the core strategy side, there are various things that we can do jointly with the business team to ensure that we keep the cost on check. And the last, on the value manager side, if you look at it, we can look at effective interest rate, effective tax rate, the funding mix, driving the cost transformation within the organization and for our functions, which can keep the organization on check. Now, to play these roles on the TCM and PCM, there are 4 key enablers. We can look at it. How do we build the capable team? Once we have the capable team, they will understand the entire cost management aspects holistically. They will leverage the technology, the processes, the right KPIs that is needed for the cost transformation and driving the PCM. And also the culture part is equally important. 60 to 70% of the cost-cutting initiatives have not been able to generate sustainable results because either the cost consciousness culture is not there or that discipline is missing. So by looking at these 4 enablers and looking at these 4 pillars, I think each of us as a cost and management accountant can deliver on the TCM and PCM and can effectively become a strategic business partner. Thank you.